Hi, Haseeb. We're live. So
Hello,
we
hello.
met just now. We're going to have some people joining us, which is super exciting. And I'm going to be doing an intro for us. If you have any questions, just pop them in the messages and then we'll get to those later. I'm just going to do a short intro. So welcome to the Divergent Discussion. My name is Carla. I'm a registered psychotherapist, trained as a psychologist. I'm a PhD researcher. I'm the clinical lead at a Caboose, an inclusive and safe online community for neurodivergent people to connect, learn, and thrive. We are built by neurodivergent people for neurodivergent people, which I think is the way to go. This is just a reminder that this divergent discussion is being recorded and we'll be sending out a copy to everyone who has a paid ticket. We'll also have time at the end for audience questions. So like I said, just pop them into the messages. In there. And then I just want to do a quick bio on you, Haseeb. So please just tell me if I'm doing anything or if I'm saying anything wrong.
I will let you know. No worries.
Thanks. Haseeb, you've got over 6 years of experience in global coaching across 6 continents, specializing in ADHD and neurodiversity inclusion. You're also the founder and program director of the ADHD Rebel Center and Pakistan's first ADHD coach, which is amazing. Like you said earlier, probably a little bit lonely too. We'll probably speak about that. Delivering multicultural coaching to leaders, creatives, parents, couples, educators, and professionals. Haseeb is passionate about helping families better understand ADHD, develop supportive home routines, and boost confidence in children and teens. Haseeb excels in helping organizations design and embed neuro-inclusive practices that improve retention, performance, and psychological safety. That's awesome, man. That's what we all need, while empowering individuals to thrive personally and professionally. That's awesome. Welcome. I'm so
Thank
happy
you
for
so
you
much,
to be
Carla.
here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited about the discussion. Also, just to like connect different worlds and how we can learn from one another. I know that you're in Australia at the moment, but just from your experience of Pakistan and me being in Portugal, and there's definitely a lack of knowledge everywhere I go. It doesn't matter which part of the world it is. What about let's start with your journey in ADHD. So, how did you first come and understand your diagnosis? So we didn't really speak about that, but
Mm,
your diagnosis and what was your journey like?
mm. Uh, I would say I got very lucky in the way I bumped into the world of ADHD. I was lucky enough to have an uncle who was practicing. He was a doctor in the NHS in the UK, and back in the day, this was me, early teens, right? He came across this pamphlet which described what ADHD was, and it was as if it was a light bulb moment for him, and he was like, "Oh my god, this sounds exactly like Haseeb." So he calls my mom up, right? And he's like, "I think Haseeb has ADHD." So that's how that was the first time when I found out that there's this something called ADHD. And I remember I went online, did a quick Google search or something, and I remember I came across a blog, and it was as if I still remember to this day. It was as if my whole life was put in front of me. Like every box was like tick, 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 tick. And it was this like big, huge aha moment for me. And I remember just running to my mom and I was like, "Oh my god, mom, all the struggles make sense now. Like this is why I was struggling so much in school and everything else."
How old were you?
So I think I was around 13, 14 when I first found
Okay,
out,
interesting.
when I first heard the word ADHD. And so that's where the 19-year long journey of like being hyper focused on understanding ADHD started. And to this day, the learning hasn't stopped, and and you never really stop. And it's such a complex disorder. You never really fully understand. At least I don't. Um, you know. So
Yeah, I think
so that's how it started.
that's the beauty of our field is that we never stop learning. We have this like ongoing. This is why we're so hyper fixated in this field. I find because it's like there's
Mm,
new things coming out the whole time that we can add and we can include in our practice and how we understand ourselves, but also our clients. and how to support them. Thank you for
mm,
sharing that story. I think 13, 14 is an interesting age because it's, there's a lot of hormonal changes that happen. I feel like my diagnosis was very much later. It was when I was in my
mm.
30s. And I
All
feel like when
right.
I was 13, 14, that's when I realized there are a lot of things happening that are different. Like I
Mm,
felt super sensitive in brackets
mm,
because I think that I wasn't that, I was sensitive, but in a good way. Like I just noticed changes and people's inconsistencies. So I think if I look back now, that age group was quite difficult because I didn't feel understood a lot. So
mm,
I think maybe if the awareness was there more, I would have probably been diagnosed earlier too.
mm.
What about the challenges that you've noticed in ADHD and your ADHD? What is it brought up with in your personal life?
I think one way that I would explain the challenges is by telling everybody that ADHD affects every sphere of your life. So it affects your mental health, your emotional health, your relational health, your financial health, your physical health, your spiritual health. Am I missing anything? Wait, did I say financial health?
Yeah, you did. Yeah, the ADHD
So
tax. Yeah.
the ADHD tax, right? So it's like it's quite overwhelming because you don't just it's a gift that it's a never ending gift, right? You just don't face just one problem, do you? It's not just as
Yeah.
simple as, oh, I struggle with focus. That's all that I struggle with, really. No, no,
No,
that's not
no,
what
it's
it
just
is.
it's
It's not
not
as
just
simple as that.
lose yeah, it's
It's
not
not as
just
simple
losing
as
your
that.
keys.
Yeah, no. No, we have built a system for that. That does not even happen now. So that's been taken care of. But I think everything that could potentially go wrong did go wrong, basically. And that is why I think I tell my clients, whoever I work with, when I talk in the community, I emphasize that having a robust support system for this very reason is extremely important. Um, so,
Mhm.
because as we know, we pick three things up we might pick three tools up from our support system basket today, and they might last what, 2 days, 3 days, and then, you have to pick new tools up, new tricks, tips, whatever, supports. So it's quite challenging. I
Yeah,
can't
I
number
think
them.
yeah, what I'm hearing as well is that for me personally, I believe in a holistic approach. I believe in, yes, you do need your
Mm,
strategies and your support systems, but you also need the people in it, in your life that
100%.
are aware of what you're going through and maybe have, that mentor or friend that you can completely disclose with so that you can also feel like I can unmask with this safe person. So I think it's always
Mm,
like finding things that work for you, finding the people that work for you, and finding the environment that works for you. That's ideally what we need as ADHDers. And exactly like keeping in mind that it's lifelong, that
mm,
we don't actually want to get rid of it because I love my ADHD, but I do want to be okay with it. So I don't want to feel like it's ruling me. I want to work with it so that I continue being this creative person with ADHD. And
mm, mm,
yeah,
mm.
that's great. What about the strengths? Do you want to share any of the strengths that you've noticed having ADHD?
Before I come to that, just I want to point out, you mentioned having a holistic approach, having how important community is. I just want to point out, I think that I count that as part of my support system. So having those mentors, my own coaches. Like, I remember this one time I was struggling so much. I literally was working with two ADHD coaches at the same time. So you can put whatever you need in the said support system basket, right? It could be your
Nice.
therapist, it could be your mom, it could be your friend, it could be your professor, whoever, right? So
Mhm.
having that community is extremely important. Coming to the strengths, so the way I view ADHD as a strength has evolved over the years, is what I've experienced. So in the beginning, still remember when I was growing up, there's this one school of thought, which is Dr. Russell Berkeley, you know,
Mm.
who talks about it's not a strength. It's called a disorder for a reason. Human beings are a mixed bag of traits, and because of our ADHD, we have set traits, but not everything is attributed to ADHD. And the other school of thought was Dr. Hallowell, for example, Ned Hallowell, for example,
Mm,
who I loved his approach. I remember in the very beginning when I was growing up, I loved his approach where he would flip every negative into a positive and start looking at every struggle through this lens of strength and positivity, right? So I think I did begin I think that really helped me when I was growing up in my teens, having that lens of like, no, there's a strength side to it. But now, after having researched it and I've lived with it for almost 19 years now, I don't really see it as a strength, to be honest. I do, yes, I am very tenacious, I'm courageous, I'm a lot of things, but I won't contribute those to my ADHD. I think
okay.
yeah, yeah.
That's interesting. My creative flow is definitely my ADHD strength. It's that ability to kind of like tunnel vision and just do one thing at a time and completely obsess about it. I don't
Hyper
think
focus, yeah.
holistic brains, would be able to sit there for, like hours at a time just doing one thing. I thi- I
Hmm.
think I love Ned Hallowell's book ADHD 2.0. I found
2.0,
it difficult
God.
to yeah, I found it difficult to read though because there weren't any pictures in it. But I will speak to him about it. I do like his approach that he does turn things into a positive. It's also because he's got ADHD. He even does
Yes.
TikTok videos at his age. Like he's in his 70s now, and he does
I have
TikTok
not come
videos.
across his TikTok. Really? That's interesting.
Yeah, you should
Okay,
definitely
thank you
go
for
and
sharing
check them
that.
out. Yeah.
I definitely will. Interesting.
Okay, so what about how has ADHD shaped your life, your identity, how you view yourself? What is there? Is there anything that you wanted to share there that people can maybe relate to as well if they feel like they might have ADHD or they suspect it or they already
Hmm.
have the diagnosis?
I think having ADHD had a huge impact in the way I approached my career, for example, is one thing I would share with everybody. Um, I feel like a lot of people who are neurodivergent are these amazing multi potentialites, right? We don't just have one's passion, do we? Um, I've worked so far to date 10 plus years as a wildlife conservationist. I work in the renewable energy sector as an engineer with building schools and hospitals for refugees. I did that for more than a decade. I've worked as an ADHD coach globally as well. So I think that is one thing that I would share with everybody, Kim.
Mm.
It it does it was hard for me to work in a conventional um, organizational setting where all systems are made for neurotypical brains. They aren't spaces which are not exclusive and don't cater to people who might be neurodivergent like me, you and I, right?
Mm.
So that was quite challenging. That was quite challenging. That was one thing. That is one thing that I'll share with you. But coming back to, so you asked how it molded me.
Like into your identity and shaped kind of who you are and changed maybe even after post diagnosis.
I think one thing that it did for me was I started owning it. I wouldn't blame. I stopped blaming anybody. I owned my
Mm,
ADHD, and I think that was one of the reasons I was able to. I found that extremely healing. Looking back now, this
mm,
aspect of whatever is going wrong is it's nobody else's fault. It's all my fault. So I would own it, and I would just then hyper focus and deep dive into problem solving it and reaching out to
mhm,
the community. Another example that I can give you is, for example, for my 30th birthday. I remember these were the COVID days, and so I threw this big Zoom birthday party. It was my birthday, and I threw this Zoom party, and I wanted all my loved ones to be with me. And I remember my friends and family who had joined the event were joking about like this feels like a United Nations General Assembly meeting than Haseeb's birthday, because there were apparently like 14, 17 nations people from 17 different countries on there.
That's
So this is just one one example of like how much ADHD affected me, because I was so unconventional, right? I couldn't just be happy
Mhm.
with the norm, just being happy with with being friends with my with the people that live on my street, for example. I had to be friends with people from all over the world,
Mm,
apparently. So
that's so
that's another
cool.
example. So
I
that's
think
another
it's
example I can
yeah.
share with you. How
Sorry, I'm keep interrupting you.
no
That's just
please
my brain.
feel
But
feel free to
think it's
jump in.
I think it's a good way to also explain like how ADHD makes us come across as different. You know, like we have these. I also have friends in almost every country that I can think of now. I mean, I don't know that many countries, but I have friends all over, and I think it's because we like being different. We like the outside of the norm, outside of the box, and we kind of push those boundaries all the time.
We can't
Used to,
live inside the box. I think it's very
yeah,
hard for
exactly.
us to just stay inside the box, is what I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, because the
That's the
box is
challenge.
not sensory. It's not sensory sensitive. It's not great for our bodies and our brains. But I think what you were saying about the conventional work is so important for anyone listening and watching this. Being able to say, okay, well, for me personally, I don't work well with people. I
Hmm.
work well with people in a group, but I don't work well if somebody tells me what I should say or what I should do exactly. Like you should give me that kind of like freedom, right? So like freedom to
Mm,
express who I am, give me a bit of a boundary. So I always like mention to my ADHD clients, like it's like we need a playground, but we need a wall around our playground. So it's kind of like we
mm.
know where the limits are, but we can
It's very
jump
structured.
around. Exactly. Yeah. So that's yeah, I think it's important to also know like what bothers us in the work environment for sure. Like how can we change it? How can we make it a little bit easier on us? What about strategies or support? Because I know that's your focus area and I've heard that you've got really good strategies and support,
Hmm.
you know, support strategies, sorry, to make the day-to-day better for ADHDers. Do you have anything like golden nuggets for us to do and try out?
Strategies and tips for golden nuggets, right? Is that how you phrased it?
Yeah, so strategies, tips for day-to-day life with ADHD, basically. Like, what can we do to help us?
Hmm. Actually, one insight that I want to share here with you, with everybody here, is when you are working with a coach. So most of my clients that come to me, they are in this state, which is, Haseeb, I know what the problem is. I have 20-step program that I've built for this said problem, right? But I don't know how to start. I'm unable to start. And that's where the coach sort of steps in, and basically I partner with them to enable action in them, to facilitate growth and self-awareness in them, right? So that's what I do as a coach. When it comes to the tips and tricks, one thing that I would like to tell everybody is, in 2025, nobody's gatekeeping knowledge. Like, if you are looking for tips and tricks, like you can just Google those and you can literally find those. They are at the tip of your finger, right? You don't really need me or any other professional for that. So I think my first golden nugget would be to work with somebody who has gone through it. Like, why does, I sort of laugh, and it also makes me very sad. Why does every fellow ADHD have to go through the exact same torture, turmoil, exact same crap that we all went through, right? Like, it's like as if there's 1,000 potholes in front of us. And why is everybody, incessant, if that's the right word, like hell bent on going through, falling into each of those 1,000 potholes, right? So, so my golden nugget would be just reach out to the community. It could be anybody. Don't go about it alone. You're not alone. Is what one thing that I would tell
Mhm.
everybody. And it could be extremely isolating when you are in, when you have hit rock bottom, when you are struggling with your focus, you are struggling to start initiating anything, when you're struggling with ADHD paralysis, for example. it can feel like the world is about to end. Like I can't do anything. Your confidence is in the ditches. So just reach out, please. You're not alone. Reach out. That would be my number one suggestion for sure. Apart from that, any other tips and tricks? Just Google. You can Google that. I think everybody. Yeah, you don't need us for that, to be honest. So I don't really have any specific tips and tricks. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important to know that we're not alone. I think that's a big assumption that we have when we feel like we're not able to do the things that we were able to maybe in the past or maybe never. Like I'm 41 and I
Mm,
still can't cook. You know, it's like
mm,
something that I'm always going to have an issue with. I don't like it. So it's not part of my interest, but it's something that
mm,
everybody does. So, you know, I'm thinking, should I be
mm,
able to do this? So in the past, I would force myself to cook and it would be awful. It would be such a bad
mm.
experience for everyone involved.
I'm sorry to
And
hear that.
now, no, but I mean, as a like in a funny way, because people would have to eat what I cooked, right? But nowadays, like, okay, I'm like, I've got an amazing person here in Portugal that cooks for me, and she just
That's
gives me like
wonderful.
these, I know it's not great, frozen meals, but I put it in the air fryer and I'm happy. Like that's my life and it's
Mm,
affordable. So just making those things, I think, yes, tips and tricks we can Google for
mm,
sure. And I think having a person there that could help, but also knowing that there are ways to make it easier for you. So you don't have to
mm,
force yourself to do the things that you absolutely hate or that you feel that you're not
mm,
great at. You can actually just find ways to make it easier. And it doesn't necessarily need to cost a lot of money. It could be that, okay, so I
mm,
don't, let's say I dislike, I live right here at the ocean, right? And I dislike surfing. Everyone's like, why are you not surfing? Why are you not surfing? Tell them because I love running into the water and going down and, you know, like diving into the water. That's what I love doing. But in the past, I would think maybe I should surf because this is what everybody is telling me to do. So I
mm,
think it's knowing, like you said earlier, like owning your ADHD, but then taking it like a level up and saying, okay, well, I can also advocate for myself and find the thing that I do love about the said topic. So whether that topic is cooking or going into the ocean, doing whatever sport, I think it's about the confidence there.
mm. And if I may jump in, like
Yeah.
I think what I'm taking away from what you just shared is like everybody who's listening, please don't compare yourself. So like in Carla's case, like she accepted herself, okay, I'm not gonna be the best cook in the world. I'm gonna
Ever.
I'm gonna outsource this. I'm gonna
Yeah,
outsource this.
outsourcing.
I'm not gonna beat myself over this, and I'm gonna outsource this. So please, this could be my golden nugget to everybody. Please don't compare. and
Mhm.
and I love your example of like the example of swimming that you just shared. What it sort of reminds me of is, okay, for us, having some sense of novelty is so important, even though the sea and swimming is so exciting, because maybe it was right in front of you and it was like common thing. Maybe it didn't have the novelty, so you were like, okay, I'm gonna do deep diving perhaps, like, which is nobody else is
Mhm.
probably doing, I imagine.
Yeah, it's
So I
different.
think for us, right? So I think for us, it's important to understand. Okay, our brains, for us, motivation does not work the same way it works for neurotypicals. And so for us, it's different. So our novelty, bringing novelty to things, is it's very important. It's healing.
Yeah, that's so important to take that brain based approach and knowing that ADHD makes our entire brain chemistry different. You know, it is different to an holistic person's brain, and things that
100%.
might be motivating and interesting to the norm would not be interesting to us. I'm constantly measuring this with friends that don't have diagnoses and that don't have ADHD, and I'll be like, "Oh, I love this. I can talk about this topic for ages," whereas they're like, not at all. And I like mentioning this too because it's also helping you know the my friends to get to know me a bit better. Okay, so let me go over to the next question. In your career, and your professional life, both the challenges and advantages of ADHD. Could you mention some of those?
The challenges and advantages of having ADHD as a working professional. I think one of the advantages was because I was so entrepreneurial, because I was, I had this huge need for novelty seeking, I was sort of pushed into this arena of like becoming Pakistan's first ADHD coach, for example, right? Like in a country of 240 million people, nobody had ever before thought about, which is quite sad now that I think about it. Okay, we need somebody who does this work and who can support neurodivergent people. So I think that was one of the benefits, for sure. I was able to lead in industries that weren't common back home in Pakistan 6 years back, for example. That was one of the perks. Another thing, Carla, can you repeat the question?
Sure. It's just the challenges that you faced in your personal and your professional life. Sorry. So like some of
Challenges,
the things.
yes.
Yeah. So yeah, and
I
how
think
it
I found
showed
it.
up.
I think one of the big challenges when I worked in a very corporate, sort of a big organization setting, was it was very hard. I had to do a lot of advocating for myself at work, and it was as if I was pushing against the wall. There was an extreme lack of understanding of how neurodivergent people work differently, how they learn differently, how they might require accommodations at work. So my workplace was very averse to all of that. Inclusion, diversity, equity, belonging. We had none of that at where I was working back in the day as an engineer. So it was extremely challenging. And I think that was one of the reasons which really pushed me into this field, because when I did start work as an ADHD coach, I remember I found it to be so healing. And I remember this feeling so vividly where I remember after a session, I was like, why am I feeling so much more energized? Why do I feel so positive? Like, how is this even possible that I'm not feeling tired after having worked an hour with the client? Like, what is this feeling, right? So I think that was one of the positives that came out of like working in this unconventional sort of sector, working as a professional coach. Um, Challenges in the workplace. There's so many. Oh my God, there's a lack of, there was so much conflict. There's lack of misunderstanding, lack of communication, lack of empathy from managers, team leads. It was very challenges. It was very challenging to bring about even the smallest kind of accommodation, sort of inserting that into the organization. It was as if it was falling on deaf ears, very challenging. That's why I switched careers as well. So,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
it was extremely hard. I just switched rooms. Sorry about that. What?
What would you like employers and colleagues to better understand about working with someone with ADHD? So if there's somebody with ADHD, I mean, this could be somebody that they don't know that they have ADHD, or it could be somebody
Mm,
that are quite aware. So it's a very difficult question because it's quite a big range.
it's a heavy hitter. Yes. What would I like them to know about
No.
somebody
Yeah.
with ADHD? That's such a okay. That's a hard one. I think one thing I would like to share with them is like sort of not to put people who are neurodivergent in boxes. I'll give you an example. Haseeb struggles with communication. It shouldn't be Haseeb struggles with communication all the time, forever. It should rather be Haseeb struggle with communications on this particular day at this event for this reason. Does that make sense?
So
So
give
not
it
putting us.
context.
So yes, giving it context and not thinking of symptoms or challenges as life sentences. Okay, oh,
Mm,
he is forgetful. He Hasib isn't forgetful all the time 24/7, is he now?
mm,
Yes, sometimes he does tend to be more forgetful than usual. Uh, for
mm,
example, if he hasn't if he is not taking good care of his sleep hygiene, for example, right? If he hasn't slept
mm.
well, he's been sleep deprived, he's going to be a lot more forgetful for sure at work, isn't he?
Yeah.
Right?
Or if he's
So
not
something,
interested.
or if he's not interested, yes, that could be another one. Give give projects that the person with ADHD is passionate about, and
Mm,
you would see results that you would not have even imagined, right? Because they
mm,
would give it their all. they were they would be so hyper focused on that project. You'll be surprised how well they would be doing. So another thing that I would share is give them room for creativity, because that's our core strength, right? Like, we are unconventional thinkers, we are out of the box thinkers. um, and if you bring us into in a work environment where it's rigid, you have to stay in 1,000 lines, between 1,000 different lines, it's going to be very hard for that person to function. um, they're going to struggle a lot. Their confidence is going to, they're going to struggle with their confidence. The list is never ending, really. So that's another thing that I would tell them. Something that I would like to share with my coworkers or employees. I would advocate for workplace accommodations. And that's why I do this work now. I think all of this work that I do now, working as an ADHD coach, working as a workplace neurodiversity specialist, it didn't really stem out of, okay, oh, this looks like lucrative work, let's get into this. No, it was more about survival. It was born out of survival. So I think, yeah, now I just go up to people and I go prepared with with everything. I'm like, huh, these are the gazillion things I think I can help you with, and they are like, oh my god, we didn't even think about this. Yeah, come on board. Like, let's talk about let's see how, I'd love to bring you on board, and yeah, let's see what we can
Yeah.
do.
I think it's also with that awareness, right? So you know that this is your ADHD brain, this is where you function optimally, and this is how you can kind of like add to the work environment. A lot of people, I feel like, in the work environment might not know that they have ADHD, or they're very kind of young on the process or on the journey. So like it's a short journey for them, and that
Yes.
might be lead to a lot of overwhelm. I just had a group earlier that was the that we were focusing on burnout in the workplace, and it's a lot of times we don't feel as individuals in general, but I think specifically women, we don't feel safe that we can disclose. And how do we disclose? And like, is that
That's
going
such
to
a big
be
one. Yes.
detrimental to our
Send.
work? Which sucks to even say, but sometimes, well, a lot of times, most of the time, we're still worried about the stigma and what is that going to cause us. So I think from that point
Mm,
of view, it's like finding a safe person at work as well, and being able to at
mm,
least share to that person. That was actually a suggestion from the group that I did earlier today, where it's like, okay, I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed. Can you be my safe person when this happens?
mm,
I had this over the
mm,
weekend when I had like a social gathering, and people think I'm super social. They think, well, Carla's
mm,
got all these friends and she's a social butterfly. Yes, I am, because that's part of my ADHD. But the other part is also that I feel extreme levels of anxiety with that amount of noise and people.
mm,
And I have one safe friend that I go to, and I would just blurt stuff out to her, and she's like,
mm,
everything is going to be okay. You're doing great.
mm.
So maybe even that at a
Yeah,
workplace.
and that's why having these mental health employee resource group are so important. These
Yeah.
ERGs, ADHD ERGs, mental health specific ERGs is so important. So I think you bring up a very good point. I think I would definitely love to. That's another thing that I would tell the employers. How can you make the workplace safe enough for the neurodivergent person to actually raise their hand and be
Mm,
vulnerable and not be discriminated against?
yeah.
Think about that, and making sure it's a lot of the time what they go in this wrong direction where they make it super public, and it's like, so
Mm,
the solution has to be, it shouldn't be shouting, it shouldn't be so bold that everybody
mm,
is looking at Carla now. Okay, oh, what is, like, oh, she's different, this is
mm,
how she's different. So it needs to be discreet as well sometimes, I think.
yeah.
Something as simple as, like, Haseeb needs a separate space to do his meetings, for example, if he gets bothered by the noises. So they would set up a big place with a big bold sort of banner. Okay, oh, this is like the space for this person, or like, and everybody would, they start looking at you differently. So you have to make it, how can you make it not like, oh, this is Haseeb is getting special treatment.
Mm. Yeah, that's important. We don't like attention either. So I
Attention,
think a lot of
yes.
a lot of people have this perception of, is that even the word? Like misperception. Is that a
Perception.
word?
I
Like
think
a
I
a
understand.
wrong
Hmm. The wrong
perception
kind
of
of
that.
perception.
Yeah, the wrong kind of perception of us wanting attention because we speak up. And it's actually a lot of times our anxiety. And I just say stuff, and people are like, oh, yeah, Carla's speaking again. But it's because I feel unsafe. So I'm like saying something so that
Mm,
I'm actually trying to get less attention on me, and
over
I'm
explaining,
getting the
maybe.
opposite done. Yeah. But I mean, that's also advocating for ourselves. So we covered this a little bit. I just want to try, I'm going to try and get through some of these questions before we get to the audience questions. So I'm just going to
Hmm.
shoot through a few more. So, in terms of, I know we touched on community and connection, but
Yes.
what role has community and connection played in your ADHD journey?
I think it was the most important thing that I did for myself on my ADHD journey. I
Nice.
think having that community saved me as far as I would, go. Like,
Sure.
I would say it was huge.
Where did you find the community?
Online.
It's
Online.
usually like this, eh?
Um, it's usually like, because
Mm.
especially in the city that I was growing up in, nobody knew about ADHD. Like, I remember this conversation. I had this conversation with my professor, like in front of the whole class. I confronted. I was like, "Professor, do you know what ADHD is?" And he had no clue, of course. And I was
Oh,
trying to
wow.
explain to him, okay, this is the reason I struggle in your course. This is why I'm. And all he could come up back with was like he's just trying to make excuses. So I think having, like, I wouldn't even be in this field, for example, because had I not had my community when I was growing up. Like, for example, the first time I heard the term ADHD was from one of my friends who lives in the US, because it was a much more developed field there. It was common. They had heard about it. So they were like, Haseeb, do you know what you can reach out to an ADHD coach, perhaps. I was like, really? Like, who are these people? Wait, I need to find this person.
Mm.
And then I remember I went online and I was like devastated when I found there was not even a single ADHD coach in the whole of the country. I couldn't find anybody. And
In
then
Pakistan,
this
yeah.
in
Yeah.
Pakistan. So then this race started to, like, okay, I need help. So I remember, I kind of laugh at this story, but I think it's important to share with the people. I remember I reached out, I spammed, like, I don't know, like 100 random ADHD coaches all over the world. I was like, please, I need help. you know, you know, and because another challenge was, like, back in the day, I remember, because of the currency depreciation, it was so expensive working with somebody from abroad,
Mm.
and a professional ADHD coach. It was, like, quite expensive, so it was quite unreasonable. So I was like, I literally spammed like 50 to 100 ADHD coaches. I was like, hey, do you do pro bono work? And I just told them my whole life story. And I remember one of them was very kind enough to offer, okay, yes, I would love to do pro bono work. So that's how I basically got my first ever ADHD coach.
Nice. So it does
Yeah.
happen. We just have to kind of like push through and find those people.
100%. Yes, yes, yes. So having that community is so important. And I think, okay, you earlier asked about if, Hasib, you would like to share like a golden nugget. I think my golden nugget would be, please seek discomfort. Intentionally go out seeking discomfort. That would be my golden nugget. I think that was the biggest factor that led me to the amount of growth that I saw in my life. I
Mm.
remember I would intentionally go out I would go out, I would intentionally do rejection therapy challenges, Carla, to heal and grow. Imagine, like, I would literally go out seeking rejection just to grow.
Mm.
So, you know, silly stuff. So stuff like, I would literally walk into uh, a bookstore. I remember this fancy bookstore that I went to this one time. I was like, there's no way they're going to lend me expensive, like, they had the most expensive looking books. So I remember I picked like four the most expensive looking books, and I was like, I literally walked up to the counter. I was like, hey, can I borrow these if you don't mind? And he was like, like, she looked at me like, what's wrong with you? Like, of course you
No.
can't. you know so stuff like that that really
Mm.
pushed me. And I remember, like, it would, those things really helped me grow. Silly stuff.
Mm.
But yeah, seeking discomfort, 100%. And that
I
also brought
like
me to, go ahead, sorry.
I like it as a therapist. I would caution though, just because I work with a
Mm-hmm.
lot of women, especially that's my focus area, and just saying that, rejection sensitivity can hit so hard, especially for
Yes,
us,
you're right.
that
True, so true.
yes, of course, it's going to happen and it's good to talk about it. I do like the fact to push ourselves outside of our comfort zones. um, I will give you a personal example and then we have to move along because otherwise we're not going to get through all the questions. But I
Yeah,
find it
go ahead.
super uncomfortable to dance in a group with
Mm-hmm.
people, but I like moving. So I have a friend now that's kind of like pushing me and saying, well, just dance for 5 minutes and then you can go back. And
Mm-hmm.
then I will message him right before I go and right afterwards. I did it just to kind of like push myself a little bit. So this is hilarious that I'm sharing this live, but I even watched YouTube videos on how to dance as a 40-year-old. There are some
Uh-huh.
specific videos of like how to look not like a fool when you're 40. And it's like these easy steps that you can just follow. So like turning your
Yeah.
your knees in, turning your knees out, doing this. And I'm like, I can do this. So I did that for 5 minutes and then I would exit, message him because he's kind of like my accountability buddy. And like I would get that like back and forth, pushing myself out of my comfort zone so that if I do feel like that rejection, somebody looks at me funny or whatever, at least I know it's just
Mm,
for a short amount of time and I've got a safe space to go
mm,
back. So I definitely agree. I would just obviously say, like, from a therapist
mm.
point of view, I always need to cover the psyche and the emotional part. I know
Yeah.
coaches are more kind of behavioral and practical,
I
but
think
I
those
have
just
to bring that
those
in.
is those no, I'm glad you brought that up. Those disclaimers are very important. I would have said the same thing. So having boundaries is important. Like I wouldn't put myself in danger, for example. I
Yeah.
had boundaries. I had very set boundaries. So yes, having those boundaries are very important when you think about seeking discomfort and
Yeah.
doing rejection therapy challenges, for example. You can't do something dangerous or put other people at risk. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And that includes your emotions.
Hmm. Hmm. The emotions did get a lot of beating, yes.
What about a lesson that you've learned that your ADHD has taught you, that you feel like
Lesson.
everyone can benefit from?
Lesson that my ADHD has taught me. ADHD has taught me. I think one lesson that my ADHD has taught me to celebrate my how unconventional I can be, or how different, like celebrate me being different. I think that's
Nice.
one
Yeah.
lesson that I've learned from my ADHD. I'm very okay with not being, you know, the same as a lot of other people. Like I'm totally fine. Acceptance, I think, has been a big lesson. Like
Mm.
that had to be drilled in me, of course. Like if you are ADHD, like you can't go without it. Like otherwise, I don't know how we would have made it. A lot
Mhm.
having that self-respect, acceptance, being okay with being different, accepting, okay, I'm gonna struggle in ways that other people won't, and that's totally fine.
Mm.
It doesn't
Liking
really
it as
bother.
well. Yeah, at some point.
Um,
Like, not liking the struggles, but liking
you
who you
you don't
are.
have to like. Yeah, you don't have to like this. Yes, thank you.
Mm. Mm. Okay, anything specific? And then we've got two quick questions and then a question from the audience. So I'm rushing a little bit so that we can get through
Mm-hmm.
everything. But is there anything specific that you can mention about ADHD and men? Because, that's where you're coming
Hmm.
from.
Hmm. I was thinking about this actually. How about we rephrase this question? So, what is my? Can you help me rephrase the question, Carla?
So let's rephrase it in terms of, is there anything that you feel is maybe different to the typical thoughts about ADHD if you're thinking specifically about men? Is there something that we don't know about, maybe? Because I think with women, I'll just give you the flip side. With women, and I know I'm just using two
Hmm.
genders here, but with women, people aren't aware of the amount of anxiety that we have. And I think that's something that we
Hmm.
need to remember as therapists, as coaches, as anyone, clinicians, friends, family, loved ones, that we have an immense amount of anxiety that we're dealing with on a daily basis. So strategies will be different for us. It should be different. Whereas with men, I don't
Hmm.
know, because 'cause I'm not a man, right? So that's kind of
Hmm.
like where I think you can bring in some different type of wisdom.
I think one thing that comes up is, and this might not necessarily answer the question, but when you think of the symptoms that we might face as men, because it's a spectrum disorder, anybody and everybody can experience it. So and no symptom is exclusive to men. For example, you talked about anxiety. Men can also experience high levels of
Of course.
anxiety, and most do, right? Something that I would like to say from a perspective of men. The only thing that comes up, honestly, is how isolating it can be. So I think that's one thing I would share with the community. Okay, reach out to the men, fellow ADHDers, who you might know. Just yeah. Like another thing that I would share with everybody is like amongst friends. One thing that I've ritualized now is like we just randomly check up on each other now.
Nice.
We schedule calls. We send each other literally, because everybody's so busy. We literally send our work schedules to each other, and we are like, hey, just pick a date. We'll set a Zoom meeting. We'll hang out. So like ritualizing connection, I think, is very important for men, and
Yeah.
because we have those responsibilities of our family that most women might not have, right? As husbands, as fathers, as elder brothers. So just to check up
Yeah.
on them, give them a random hug, yeah.
Yeah. If they like hugs. I don't like
If they're
hugs.
like, to do like yes, do check
Yeah.
out. Consent is important, yes.
Check.
Do
Well,
do check before
yeah,
the hug.
the sensory profile is very important. But yeah, it's not that I love that. I love that checking up and finding groups of
Yeah.
people that experience things similarly. I think there's a bit of a stigma that men, like you said, don't experience anxiety or the emotional overwhelm, and they definitely do. It might come across as, okay, now we need to, because I know a lot of ADHD men in my life that are saying, okay, well, we'll just fix it. We'll just do this. We'll just do that. It's like, okay, but it's also all right
Mm,
to feel overwhelmed and not needing to solve the problem immediately. That's also important to just have a moment to
mm,
say, okay, this sucks. I don't need to fix it right now. So I think there's
mm,
also the space for that we need to remember, especially for all genders. But I think men have a more difficult time with that sometimes. I think,
mm,
especially the men in
mm.
my life. If ADHD was a movie character, which would it be and why? Do you think?
Movie character. Just one
Yeah,
second.
you've got 1 minute to answer.
A movie character. I think the movie character that comes up for me is The Bad Guys, and the movie is The Bad Guys. I don't know if it's an animation cartoon,
I haven't seen
and the
it.
character that comes up is the wolf.
Right,
He's
I'm
he's
gonna check
this.
it out.
Yeah, I would highly recommend. It was a cool. It was a nice, cool movie, and the character is extremely misunderstood. The stigma. The basically the Bad Guys is all about these group of friends who are crooks and who want to turn good. Who are trying to turn
Oh,
good, and the stigma in the community, in the society, won't let them turn good.
oh no.
So I think that's one thing that I resonated with when I saw that. I was like, the stigma, it's
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
misunderstanding, the things that people assume about us.
I'm
That
definitely
definitely
gonna check that out.
I would highly
It
recommend
sounds
that.
like it's quite relatable. I'm gonna jump over to a question from Maria, which was a
Yeah.
really
Mm-hmm.
interesting question. I'm interested as a colleague, friend of a person recently diagnosed with ADHD in their late 40s. She's brilliant, but also erratic. When things go wrong, her behavior is defensive or super bossy. How do I understand this behavior, and how can I be supportive, but also have boundaries? That's a really interesting question. It's a difficult one to answer because I think, just from my point of view, it would be good if this colleague has support. So I
Mm,
wonder if she has support. I don't know if anything jumps up in your mind. Otherwise, I can also add and jump in.
how do I understand this behavior, and how can I be supportive but also have boundaries? I think I would share with them, try to become very good at creating this space, a safe space where you can ritualize having hard conversations with them, in a safe manner. And I'm glad that she brought up boundaries, understanding boundaries, what boundaries are, because a lot of times most people, we don't understand what boundaries are. we think something's a boundary, which in reality ends up not being a boundary. So I think understanding boundaries, sort of playing with creating those safe spaces, and better understanding how to ritualize those hard conversations with your loved ones.
Mm. So it's a colleague and a friend. Just a quick example from my weekend away. I was
Mm,
tech free, and the amount of messages that I got when I switched on my phone was a little bit overwhelming. And I realized that I was, and I'm not saying this to you, Maria, at all. I'm saying this about me personally. I was very open for people to come and speak to me. I mean, it's my profession, right? Being a therapist, I feel like I'm always open, which is not a good thing. So I definitely I need to increase a little bit of my boundaries and then have it on my terms. So when you feel like you've got the capacity to help your friend or colleague with what she's going through, then you can make that space available, but time box it.
mm,
And maybe also she has to have her own support, I would say, on the side. And then choosing one thing that you feel you could help with. So maybe that is that you're her safe person. If she's
mm,
already this explosive, I would say that her brain is probably already in like that fight or flight mode, which we need to de-escalate, and that's more of a therapist's job to do. So I would say to maybe ask her who her support system is, and then when she feels like her nervous system is calm, she's able to bounce ideas off you, so that that becomes more of the ritual that you were talking about, Haseeb. So it's not when it's in
mm.
emergency situation, but it's more when she's in a calmer state, and it helps to continue regulating. Whereas if we're already
Mm.
overstimulated,
It's hard.
I don't think anyone really at that point could help. I know for me
Yes.
personally, when I'm overwhelmed and I go to a friend, they're not going to be able to help me because I'm too intense. So I need to take that perspective and that space for myself first.
Mhm.
That
Well,
would be, yeah, my ideas. But I think we've
well
got some
said.
ideas. Yeah, hopefully. Anyways, okay, so we're just on time. Look at that. Look at that time
We did
blindness
it.
not kicking in. That was we did it. Okay. I'm just gonna quickly do a wrap up. Thank you, Haseeb, for your time.
Yep.
And this is just a reminder. Thank you also, Maria, for saying thanks. This is just
Thank you,
a
Maria.
reminder to our audience that we have a range of divergent discussions coming up. We will have Kelly Fisher on next week to discuss thriving at work when she was told she'd never get a job. And my favorite, Joe, is joining us to talk about strengths in neurodivergent people, which will be super exciting. I'm also going to be talking to Michelle, me personally, about ableism, and I can't say that
I'm the
word for the life of me. I always say it wrong, and I'm going to
oh,
be
sorry.
talking about it. You can get those tickets through Humanitics. Head to our website or check out our app. A reminder that if you have a paid ticket, you will receive the replay video in your inbox. I'm just going to mute you for a second. In your inbox shortly to watch anytime. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. It was extremely exciting. I love talking about ADHD. It's my hyperfixation. Thank you for joining, and thank you for the questions. It was amazing.
Thank you so
Thank
much for having
you.
me. Thank you, Carla. Thank you, everybody.